Welcome, quilters. I'm so excited to be here with you today for our class. I want to start off by giving you a little background on myself. I'm Pam Heller, AccuQuilt's cutting expert. While I've been a part of the AccuQuilt team for over 9 years, I've actually been an avid quilter for more than 2 decades. I love the ease and speed of making quilt designs using the AccuQuilt system. Bright colors and modern blocks are my favorite, though I have been known to spend months quilting traditional and classic patterns. During my time at AccuQuilt, I've been able to teach a variety of classes, provide motivation and inspiration to our customers, work directly with our AccuQuilt retailers, host weekly live events, and test and design dies and patterns. Some would say that I have the dream job, and I would definitely agree. Today in this class, we will be going through all the cube shapes as well as the shapes in the companion sets, so you really understand how each of those shapes come together and work together. Now, before we jump into cubes, let's go over some quick basics. The AccuQuilt system is 90% faster than rotary cutters or scissors. So what does that mean to you, quilters? Well, what used to take you an hour to cut out, you can cut out in less than 6 minutes. That's going to give you 54 minutes every hour to do what you do the most. You want to quilt and sew during that time. Our product is safe and easy to use. You can always cut up to 6 layers of quilting cotton in one pass, but you can also cut other fabrics: flannel, felt, denim, wool, cork, minky. I'm going to tell you to start with 1 or 2 of those thicker fabrics. Our geometric shapes have a 1/4 inch seam allowance built in. Remember, quilters, you always want to cut on the lengthwise grain. Why? Well, that lengthwise grain is nice and tight, and you're going to get a good, clean cut. There are 2 exceptions to the lengthwise grain rule. We'll talk about both of them today. Don't forget, quilters, you want to use the appropriate size cutting mat. For example, if your die is a 6x12 die, you want to make sure you use a 6x12 mat. You don't want to use a big 10x24 mat. As it goes through the cutter, it's going to shimmy. Remember, quilters, our dies are only going to cut where there is fabric and a mat, so you can always use a smaller mat. For example, if I was cutting half square triangles on the flying geese die, I would just use a 6x6 cutting mat. It's not going to damage your blades on your dies or your mats. AccuQuilt has 3 cutter options to choose from. The first one is the Go Me fabric cutter starter set. This set is perfect for new quilters. Maybe you're a crafter or a fiber artist or a quilter on the go. It is our lightest, most compact cutter. It includes our Go Me cutter and 2 dies, a 3-inch finished half square triangle die and a 3-inch finished 1/4 square triangle die, a 6x6 cutting mat, and a pattern book to help you get started. Next up is our Ready, Set, Go. It is the ultimate fabric cutter starter set. This set literally has everything you need to get started. Just add fabric. It includes our Go fabric cutter, which is our manual machine, a Go 8-inch mix and match cube, which are those 8 shapes designed to make over 72 mix and match patterns, a 2.5-inch strip die. Why? What do you use 2.5-inch strips for? Everything. Binding, borders, sashing, jelly rolls. And you're going to see some amazing tips and tricks that I'm going to show you today using that strip die. A 10x24 cutting mat, and a great book by our good friend Eleanor Burns called Go Qube. It is a pattern book for projects and quilts using the Qube system. We've also included a die pick to help you keep your dies clean and ready to use. Next up is our Go Big fabric cutter starter set. This is our electric and largest cutter. It's perfect for those of you who are making more than 6 to 8 quilts a year. Maybe you're doing charity quilts. Maybe you have some physical limitations. This machine helps reduce hand and arm strain. It includes our Go Big electric fabric cutter. This is the cutter I use every single day. Included in the set is a flying geese die. What is hard about flying geese? Yeah, everything, right? Getting those points together to make them even, make the sides line up. Since the flying geese die comes on a 6x12 die board, we've included a 6x12 cutting mat and a pattern book. Now remember, there are a variety of dies built just for the Go Big. And since it's 4 inches wider than our Go fabric cutter, you can actually run 2 of our smaller dies through in one pass through the cutter. Now let's get to the meat of this class, the mix and match magic with Go Qubes. Mix and match cubes come in 6 different sizes: a 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, 9-inch, 10-inch, and 12-inch blocks. Every cube includes 8 geometric shapes that work together to make 72 mix and match patterns. There are 14 additional patterns included in your cube, along with a cutting mat and a storage case, and step-by-step instructional videos. Blocks in the cube system are based on a 4-patch system. So don't think if you're getting an 8-inch cube, you're going to be able to cut 8-inch squares. There's some sewing involved. All of the shapes have a 1/4-inch seam allowance built in. Now, 4 of shape number 1 in every cube will make a block that finishes at that cube size when it is sewn together in your project. So let's take a look at the shapes included in the mix and match cube. All the shapes in the cube are the same shape, they're just different sizes. All right, quilters, let's open up a cube and see what's inside. Today I'm going to show you our 4-inch cube. So I'm going to open it up just like this. Ta-da! The first thing you're going to notice is that your cube system has its own storage container. I'm going to pull this skinny one first. It's going to allow the other pieces to come out easily. All right. So the first 4 shapes in every cube, each die is numbered and each pocket is numbered. And it also gives you a diagram of the shapes within the cube. All right, let's start with shape number 1. Remember, quilters, the cube system is based on a 4-patch system. Shape number 1 in every cube are squares. Now, in this particular case, there are blades right here in the center. So sometimes our cube dies have multiple shapes on one die board. So shape number 1 is a square. Shape number 2 are smaller squares. Now this is a sample of one of the patterns within the cube. So a couple of things you're going to notice, it's kind of a quilt by number system. So if I wanted to make this block, all I would need are shapes 2, 3, and 5. This tells me how many of each shape to cut, and this tells me the yardage I need to make one block. Now, why did we tell you one block? Because we don't know what you're making. Maybe you're making a table runner or a wall hanging. Maybe you're making a mix and match quilt. So that will allow you to make one block, and then you can do the math to complete your project. On the back are sewing instructions. That's going to make sure that your block finishes to the appropriate size, that your pieces come together perfectly. Shape number 3 in every cube are half square triangles. One of the great things about our cube system is that we've cut off the dog ears. So from this point here to this point here is a perfect 1/4-inch seam. Shape number 4 in every cube are quarter square triangles. So here we go. Again, there are 4 on the die board, and we've cut off the dog ears. So from this point here to this point here is a 1/4-inch seam. So those are the first 4 shapes in your cube. Now let's look at the next 4 shapes. Remember, quilters, the shapes are the same in every cube, they're just different sizes. Shape number 5 in every cube are smaller half square triangles. Shape number 6 in every cube is not just a square, but actually they are square on point. It's meant to live on its tippy toes. Shape number 7 in every cube are parallelograms. Think how difficult it is to cut parallelograms with a rotary cutter and a ruler. And finally, in every cube, shape number 8 are rectangles. And again, you can see that there are multiple rectangles on this die board. So those are the 8 shapes in every cube. And in our small folder right here, it's going to come with a pattern book and a cutting mat. So everything you need to get started. All right, so today I'm going to go through step by step on how the shapes in the cube work together. So I'm going to work with the 12-inch cube for my shapes. Why? So you can see them better. All right, so here we go. Shape number 1 in every single cube is a square. So in this case, 4 of these sewn together would make a 12-inch finished block. So what you want to remember is that all the shapes in the cube come together to equal shape number 1. 4 of them sewn together, in this case, would make a 12-inch block. All right, so now shape number 2 in every cube are smaller squares. All right, so in the cube there's big squares and little squares. So think about this. You could actually make a 4-patch within a 4-patch, correct? So if I take 4 of shape number 2 and sew it together, it's going to equal shape number 1. All right, now shape number 3 in every single cube is this shape. What shape is that, quilters? It is a triangle. Do you know what kind of triangle it is? Yes, it is a half square triangle. All right, so 2 of these sewn together is going to equal shape number 1. All right, now how do you know it's a half square triangle? Well, we've cut it here at the diagonal. We've taken off the dog ears. So from this point here to this point here is a perfect 1/4 inch seam. So I have a question for you. If you take shape number 1 and cut it in half at a diagonal and sew it together, would it equal a square? It would. But what size square? I got nothing, because AccuQuilt has built in that 1/4 inch seam allowance for you on all of our geometric shapes, okay? So don't think, oh, I have shape number 1, I can cut it in half and it will equal the other shapes within the cube, all right? Now, shape number 4 in every single cube is this shape. What shape is this, quilters? It is a triangle. What kind of triangle is it? Well, actually, it is a 1/4 square triangle. So how many of them do I need to put together to equal shape number 1? Yes, 4. All right. Now, again, if I took shape number 1 and cut it at a diagonal and a diagonal again, sewed it together, would it equal a square? Yes. What size? We don't know. All right. We built in that 1/4 inch seam allowance. Again, we've cut off the dog ears. So from this point here to this point here, these are perfect 1/4 inch seams. Now, here's something that happens with quilters, and I'm not sure why, but sometimes they take 1/4 square triangles and sew them together like half square triangles. Would it equal a square? It would, but the measurements would be off and the straight of grain would be off, right? Because you cut those triangles so that the grain works together. So make sure that you treat your 1/4 square triangles like 1/4 square triangles, not half square triangles, okay? Now, shape number 5 in every single cube is this shape. What shape is that, quilters? It is a triangle. What kind of triangle is it? It is. It's a half square triangle. All right. So now the question is, how many of shape number 5 would we need to sew together to equal shape number 1? Yes, 8. And how many would we need to sew together to finish a 12-inch block? 32. Now, some of you are going to say to me, I am never going to use shape 5 because sewing those together, they are so little, it would take forever to make a 12-inch block. But I'm going to tell you that shape number 5 is our workhorse shape, and you're going to use it so often. It's going to allow other shapes to become new shapes. Now, here's a little pro tip. When you're looking at shape number 5 and you sew 2 of them together, what does it equal? Yes, shape number 2. All right, shape number 6 in every cube is what kind of a shape? It is a square, but what kind of square is it? It is a square on point. So the difference between shape number 1 and shape number 6 is shape number 1 is meant to live on its flat edge. But shape number 6 is like a ballerina. It's meant to live on its tippy toes. When you measure shape number 1, the sides are equal. The same here in shape number 6. But in order to do the math for a square on point, you have to look and see what the diameter is. And then what do you think the shape is that we need on the outside to equal shape number 1? Yes, shape number 5. So AccuQuilt did all the math for you. All right. So look at this. This is so cool. So now you've created a block that is equal to shape number 1, and it's the beginning of square in a square. All right, now shape number 7 is what shape? Right here. It is a parallelogram. And I'm pretty sure you all woke up this morning and thought, gosh, I hope there's a parallelogram in the cube. All right, it's our word of the day. Use it 3 times. Now, this is what I refer to as a directional shape. If you want all your parallelograms to go the same direction, you can stack your fabric either facing up or facing down. But if you want them to go in opposite directions, you need to fan fold that fabric back and forth. All right? What shape do you think we need to finish out our parallelogram? That's right, shape number 5. Look at that. Now you make sure that you add shape number 5 to the long end of your parallelogram. So now you have this rectangle and you're thinking in your quilting head, wouldn't it be amazing if every cube had a rectangle? Well, ta-da. Shape number 8 in every cube is a rectangle, all right? 2 of these sewn together would equal shape number 1. Now I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Wouldn't it be amazing if in every cube we had flying geese? Well, I'm going to tell you, they do. Watch this. To make flying geese, you need 2 shapes. You're going to need this shape number 4, which is what kind of a shape? A quarter square triangle, right? And 2 of shape number 5. All right? Now remember, we have that 1/4 inch seam allowance built in. And when you sew a flying geese together, what shape does it make? It makes a rectangle. So if you're wondering what size my finished flying geese are, it is the same size as a finished shape number 8. So today I'm using my 12-inch cube. So my flying geese would be 3 inches high by 6 inches wide finished. If you had the 8-inch cube, it'd be 2 inches high by 4 inches wide finished. All right, quilters, so I'm going to put my pieces away. And then let's take a look at some amazing quilts that you can make using your cube system. Again, remember, all the shapes in the cube are the same. They're just different sizes. All right, so the first one we have is made with the 8-inch cube, and it's called Colorado Quilt. First of all, I love the bright colors. And let's just look and see if we can find some shapes. So first of all, here's that flying geese. Look at this. So what two shapes did I need for flying geese? Yes, shape number 4 and shape number 5. Oh, look right here. It's a parallelogram. Remember, it's the word of the day. So what's the shape I need on the outside? Yeah, shape number 5. So think, quilters, about how all of those pieces work together. All right, quilters, next we have Go Qube 12-inch cross and crown. And this is a sample of how we've used a variety of cubes to make our blocks. So we've used our 6-inch cube, our 8-inch cube, and our companion sets to make these super fun blocks. So right here, here's those big half square triangles and quarter square triangles. And then look, we've added rectangles and squares to make it all work together. All right, next is our Go Diamond Star. We used our 8-inch cube to make this block. And this was actually one of the very first patterns we ever created for our cubes. So let's take a look at this block. So here is that square on point, which is shape number 6. So what's this shape on the outside? Yep, shape number 5 to make square in a square. And look, flying geese. So shape number 4 and shape number 5. And these are those smaller squares, which is shape number 2. Now we've used our 4-inch cube to make this sweet table topper. It's called Happy Plus. So look at, here's the little plus sign in the center. So this is shape number 1, and here's shape number 8. And look right here, this is shape number 3. And again, we've used tiny little sashing between our blocks, and then shape number 2 for the cornerstones. So now that we've touched on the mix and match cubes, let's talk about our cube companion sets. So let's talk about the basics of the companion sets first. First, they coordinate with the mix and match set. So what that means is if you have an 8-inch mix and match cube, you will need to get the 8-inch companions. If you have the 9-inch cube, you need the 9-inch companions, and so forth. We have 2 sets of companions, corners and angles. Within each companion set, there are 4 dies. Now, each of those sets add an additional 72 mix and match block patterns. So if you have the mix and match cube and both companion sets, you can make over 216 mix and match blocks. All right, quilters, let's open up a cube companion corners and see what's inside. All right, pull this open and ta-da. Again, you're gonna pull that skinny one first. It's gonna allow the other pieces to come out easily. In our skinny one, we have a pattern book and a mat. All right, so the 4 shapes in the companion set corners, first is chisel. So there are 2 on this die board. Now, chisels are really hard to cut by hand because you would have to cut a strip and then cut a rectangle. But what's the shape you would add here on the outside to equal a square? Yeah, shape number 5. In the non-AccuQuilt world, you would actually have to cut a square here, mark it and sew it and cut it and trim it. There's a die for that. Next is shape number 10, which is our signature block. So this is the shape that I'm going to tell you that we use, like if you were going to write a message or a greeting on a quilt. But actually, signature block, we have some amazing patterns at AccuQuilt.com that have this as different kinds of printed fabric, and it looks just stunning. So what's the shape we need on the outside, right, to create a square? Yes, it is our workhorse shape, shape number 5. All right, now the next 2 dies work together. Shapes 11 and 12, this creates bow ties or snowballs. All right, so here is that tiny little outside is the snowball shape. It's a square, and then this is called a square in the corner. So imagine the tiny little square you would have to cut here and sew and mark it. But actually, we have tiny little half square triangles that work together perfectly. Remember, these are the shapes from the 4-inch cube. The shapes are the same in every cube. They're just different sizes. All right? All right, so now let's take our shapes from our 12-inch cube and show you how the shapes work together. So first up is shape number 9, which is our chisel shape. It's really hard to create a chisel. You'd have to cut a rectangle and then cut a smaller square and then mark it and sew it and cut it and trim it. But what shape do you think we need right here to equal a rectangle? Yes, our workhorse shape, number 5. Okay? Now here's that signature block, all right? Again, a great block for weddings or graduation where you want someone to sign a message. If I was creating that kind of quilt, I would make shape number 10 a solid neutral light color. So what's the shape we need on the outside to create a square? Yes, shape number 5, okay? So if I were doing a wedding gift and I wanted everybody to sign a message at the wedding, I would make this maybe a cream or a light white, and then these I would make the wedding colors. How fun is that? All right, so shapes 11.1 and 12.1 are going to create bow ties or snowballs. All right, so again, it's the square in the corner, very similar to the chisel shape. And then we have half square triangles that fit together. And in this case, you could create bow ties. Okay, so those are the 4 shapes in the companion set corners. Again, they're the same in every cube. They're just different sizes. So let's see some samples made with corners. All right, first let's look at our twirling petals quilt pattern made with our 8-inch cube. This is actually one of my favorite patterns because it's a total scrap buster. You could bust up your stash. The outside petals are the same, but the centers and the blocks for the flowers are all different. So let's look at some shapes in here. So right here is that chisel shape, all right? And then look, what shape is this? Shape number 5. And then we have some half square triangles right here, and then 2 quarter square triangles, shape number 2 for the center. And it has a sweet border and cornerstones for the rest of the quilt. All right, this quilt is called Float On, and we used our 8-inch cube. So this is a perfect example of how the signature block can also be in colors rather than just for a signature. So right here, all of the corners for our life preserver are the signature block. And so what shape is this? Yeah, shape number 5. Here's shape number 8, which are rectangles, and the center is shape number 1. So a super fun, really fast project. And again, I love kind of all the scrappiness of it, and I love the fabric. Next up, we have common thread. This is a block where we used our 12-inch cube and both of our companion sets. So you can see right here is signature block and shape number 5. And here it is again. So the illusion is great because we're actually making that signature block into the negative space. This is a really fun, sweet, bright, springy quilt. It's called Daisy Patch. And we used our 10-inch cube to create it. So let's look at some of the shapes. So first of all, here in our daisy, here's that signature block. shape number 1. And then what is this? Yeah, shape number 5. And then here, this lattice looking section, it also has signature block and shape number 5. To complete out the quilt, we've continued the pattern, and this is shape number 2. What a fun spring project. All right, so we've talked about our companion set corners. Let's talk about angles. Let's open one up to see what's inside. All right, that skinny one's gonna have your pattern book and a cutting mat. All right. Now the first 2 shapes in our companion set angles work together. The first is called triangle in a square, and these are triangle in a square sides. So this is an isosceles triangle. Really important to make sure you don't treat it like an equilateral triangle. And these are the sides that go on the outside, so it equals shape number 1. This is the beginning of triangle in a square. The next shape is actually one of my best stash busting shapes. This is the kite shape. And it's great for scraps. For the 6 and 8 inch cubes, you could totally use charm squares. What's the shape we need on the outside to equal shape number 1? Yep, it's these triangle in a square sides. And the last shape in our companion set angles is a trapezoid. Okay, quilters, I can tell you I have never cut a trapezoid by hand, and I have no idea even how to do it. All right, so these are the 4 shapes in the companion set angles. And let me show you how those pieces work together. All right, so first we have shape number 13 and 14. This is that triangle in a square. So here's an isosceles triangle. Now the thing about shape number 14 that you want to remember is that you want to make sure you fan fold your fabric back and forth in equal numbers. If you have all of your fabric facing up like I do here, it's going to cut a left, which is going to work perfectly. But what happened here? Okay, it doesn't create the right. So you want to fan fold so you have them right sides together so you get a left and a right of every shape. And this is the center of triangle in a square. All right, here's that perfect kite shape. What a great way to bust up your scraps and use up your stash. And again, quilters, notice we've cut off the dog ears here. From this point here to this point here is a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We've also done it here on the kite shape. So again, what's the shape we need on the outside? Yep, we need shape number 14. So look at how perfect this is going to work together. All right, they line up exactly. So I'm going to sew from here to here, press my seams open. Okay, do the same on the other side, press my seams open, and now I have a square. All right, that trapezoid shape. What's the shapes you think that we need to equal shape number 1? Yep, we're going to need our workhorse, shape number 5, and then we're going to need one of our big half square triangles of shape number 3. So these are the 4 shapes in the companion set angles. Again, they're the same in every cube. They're just different sizes. All right, let's look at our little trunk show made with our companion set angles. So first is called Let's Go Sailing. All right, so a couple of things to look at here. This is really fun. First of all, we've used our nautical medley die for these applique shapes, but again, a whole bunch of geometric shapes made with your cube. So here's that square on point. So here's shape number 5, shape number 1, and so forth. This is a really fun quilt. All right. Next is Starry Path quilt pattern, and we used our 8-inch cube and companion set angles to make this beautiful quilt. So let's talk about some of the shapes in it. So right here, we have triangle in a square. So this is shape number 14. What do we remember about shape 14? Yeah, we want to fan fold back and forth in equal numbers. Here's that trapezoid shape. Look at that. Shape number 5 and shape number 3. I love this quilt. I love all the bright colors, and you could make it totally in patriotic colors. You could make it seasonal. It's just beautiful. All right, next is one of my bucket list quilts. I really want to make this. It's called our Qubes Crazy Kite Throw Quilt. So we actually used 2 different sizes of cubes and 2 different sizes of companions. The 6-inch cube and the 6-inch companion angles, the 12-inch cube and the 12-inch companion angles. So let's see if we can find some shapes. So let's start right here with that kite shape. Look at this from the 6-inch cube. So what's the shape on the outside? Yep, shape number 14. And then you can see right here, we used our 12-inch cube and our 12-inch companion angles to create this. Now, the thing to remember about this pattern is that you need to make sure that the smaller shape and the larger shape, that it's twice as big as the smaller shape. So we've used our 6-inch cube and our 12-inch cube. Could you make this with a different set of cubes? Why, yes, you could. You could use the 4-inch cube and the 8-inch cube. This is Crazy Kites. All right, last, we have this really sweet quilt called Chuckle Strawberry. We used our 10-inch cube, and I love all the bright colors and the batiks in it. So let's see if we can find some shapes. So right here, there's that triangle in a square made with our companion set angles. And the block here, you would think it was square and point, right? But actually, we have a seam right here. So these are half square triangles. These are smaller half square triangles, and this is shape number 2. All right, quilters ask me all the time, what's the difference between corners and angles? And the best way I can explain it is that corners make chunks and blocks, and the shapes in the angles companion make stars and points. So which one should you get? The answer is yes. You should get them both, because I'm going to tell you you're going to use them both. You're going to use them together and separately, and you're going to use them with the cube and to make amazing projects. So here's a great example of using both the companions, angles and corners, with their cube. So we used our 4-inch cube to create this sweet pillow. All right, so here's our companion set corners. Here's that signature block and shape number 5. Now look right here, you might think it's that square and point, but look, it's actually our trapezoid shape, and shape number 5 and shape number 3 to make those blocks. I love this. I love the modern look of it. I love the stark contrast. It's just a sweet project. All right, quilters, so now remember we have 6 different sizes of cubes. So let me show you a block from each of the sizes of cubes so you can kind of see how different they are. So here is a block from our 12-inch cube. Here is our 10-inch cube. Here is our 9-inch cube. Now look at the difference between 9 and 8. Not very much different, okay? And then here is our 6-inch cube and our sweet little 4-inch cube. Now let me show you this trick. So here's our 6-inch cube. It's going to make a block that is equal to shape number 1 in the 12-inch cube. And here is our 4-inch cube, and it's going to make a block equal to the shape one in our 8-inch cube. All right, so check out this really cool quilt pattern that we made using 4 different sizes of cubes. This is called our Qube Epic Mix and Match Sampler Quilt. All right, so I'm going to pull it up here so everybody can see. All right, okay, first of all, the thing I love most about this quilt is that it's 3-dimensional. I feel like sometimes as quilters, we get in that mode where we just have to sew everything down, okay? So this is a combination of the 6, 8, 9, and 12-inch cubes. So you can see right here, there's that square on point, the square in the square. You can see here's our pinwheel blocks. And look at these tiny little shapes from the 6-inch cube. Look, here's flying geese. What 2 shapes do you need to make flying geese? 4 and 5. Now, why doesn't this quilt include blocks from the 10-inch cube or the 4-inch cube? They weren't built yet. Thanks for joining me today. And remember, at AccuQuilt, we help you cut time so you can quilt more.